Conversation with the minister. Are you okay?
I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Let's go back to the issue of sabotage. You said it's of grave concern.
It's of grave concern, and I think it's of catastrophic proportions if we don't get to address it. Maybe just to give the viewers comfort is that I'm supported by what we call the National Energy Crisis Committee, in short, NECOM, and it's made up of experts across the entire value chain of energy generation, transmission, and distribution in the country. And one of these work stream called work stream number 6, its sole focus is on crime, corruption, and safety, and is populated by some of the most leading figures, prolific in issues of intelligence gathering and also crime busting. So they're the ones who are pulling all of these things together. The other day when I was in Parliament during budget vote number 1, that of the president, I made the point that there's over 1,300 cases that have been reported, over 100 arrests have been made, and of course we are preparing a NECOM briefing, one of our weekly briefings on a Friday, just to take the country through the kind of interventions that we are making there. And what the team is really doing is to focus just beyond the ordinary men, the ones that we get to see who are executing this crime. Of course, they are also part of the value chain, but it's to get to those who are the main orchestrators, the brains behind this effort to undermine South Africa's energy infrastructure. And you can see that in some instances there's also correlation with regards to the devastation that we are seeing in the rail infrastructure and also what you are seeing in other parts of the South African economy. And they are beginning to piece these things together. Of course, they will share that at the right time because they've got both the competence and the mandate to deal with that. So I want to say to you and South Africans that we are placing significant amount of effort in ensuring that we are able to protect these assets. Because all of these things that I've just shared with you, the progress that we've made, will go to waste for as long as we don't protect these gains. And we can show that there are those that are hell-bent on undermining this progression for a number of reasons that remains unknown to us. But I'm sure that the people with the intelligence gathering capacity will arrive at that determination, why people are doing this, that which they are doing. And you can see the decimation of South Africa's infrastructure is something that is not coincidental. It's orchestrated. So it's important that we get to the bottom of this. Otherwise, all of our efforts are going to be undermined. And I'm sure that what's in the front pages of the weekly newspaper is something that is on the radar of the team that is working in this area. I'm more than confident that they will get to the bottom of this, whether you characterize them as a cartel, as syndicates, the characterization is something else. But getting to these figureheads and making sure that we undermine and throttle this, if you like, individuals whose intention is to undermine our progression and growth as a country. So I'm confident about our ability to address that situation.
I want to ask you about the allegations of executives being involved in the sabotage. I mean, that is a serious allegation, and that is of great concern, because if you have an executive that's being accused of possible sabotage, if you can't trust the executive, how do you expect South Africans to say, no, everything's under control at these power stations? And linked to that question, we've recently been told, if I'm not mistaken, it was late last year, of station managers walking around with bodyguards and even their families being protected. That is of great concern, because a station manager is there to make sure that the power station is operating, but they fear for their lives. People won't want to work in that environment. Then you also lose skilled workers because people just don't want to be in that environment.
Yeah, so like I said, I won't enter into that domain of trying to describe and almost explain away why there are these acts of sabotage. Like I say, I'll leave that to the experts. But yes, you are absolutely correct. I mean, it takes a lot of courage and guts for someone to agree to be a station manager in some of the Eskom power stations because of the direct threat not only to their lives but to those of family members. You are absolutely correct that some of the station managers were wearing bulletproof vests, and next of kin were also under heavy protection. I mean, that's not the conditions of normality, and that's why we really want to. No, all I know is that it's a situation that is attenuating. But yes, I think there's always some degree of surveillance, protection, and support that is given to some of these station managers, especially in the epicenters of these acts of corruption. So I'm just making the point that it doesn't only just take professionalism, expertise, and knowledge, but it takes real courage for people to work with us and ensure that we are able to address the challenges of electricity in the country. And we know that its act of sabotage is deliberate in many instances. We must push back as we continue to build this buffer of energy resilience and sustainability in the country.
Okay, Minister, I want to move over to the issue of skilled workers at Eskom, managers, station managers, whatever it might be, having left Eskom because of the untenable conditions, working conditions at Eskom. Many have gone overseas to work. And I want to ask you if you have found this to have contributed to the mess we've seen at Eskom. And I also ask this in the context of what we saw happening at Kgosientsho Power Station, because somebody actually told me, one of the workers at Kgosientsho Power Station told me that the issue at Kgosientsho could have been avoided, but there's an issue of not having skilled workers and people who know how to run the power station. Has this been made aware to you about the mass exodus that you are seeing?
Well, I look at envy, the kind of progress that other jurisdictions, countries are making in building their transmission capacity, building, if you like, the base for sustainable energy generation. And that is on the back of South African expertise. And that is in part as a result of the fact that the Eskom balance sheet has been constrained, and we have not been able to keep up with the incentive to keep the best within the ranks of Eskom. And as a result, people have left. Of course, outside the issues of sabotage, danger to their lives, which are also a major contributor, but essentially it's about ultimately what is in my pocket, what is it that I'm getting as a result of me making this effort. And that's why part of the totality of interventions we're proposing is to make sure that we make Eskom attractive to some of the best minds, expertise in the country, but also retain those that are already there, because there's an exceptional amount of skill that is still there in Eskom. Of course, people have left in their numbers, but of course, you wouldn't have been able to be in a position to sustain the kind of generation capacity that we have if we lost all the skills. So others have chosen to remain. It's important that they get to be incentivized. And part of the conversations is exactly that, to make it possible for us to ensure that we provide the kind of necessary skills. Just to go to Kusile, I mean, the component there is what they call the flue gas desulfurization unit. So really, this is a component that comes about as a result of elevated emission standard. We are getting a bit more stringent. So its primary purpose is to remove the sulfur content from what we get to emit into the atmosphere. There is no single power station on the continent that is using the flue gas desulfurization unit. And I really want to pay a tribute to the chaps there who are running Kusile, very young, highly talented. I want to underscore this. Highly talented, who are doing their best in the midst of no knowledge to ensure that we get to where we are. I mean, the fact that they were able to diagnose what was the root cause why we get to where we are, that the 3 units has failed, it's a testimony to their ability to read the situation, just get immersed into understanding the configuration of the flue gas desulfurization unit. It's a 40 billion rand installation. And they got to understand that on their own, because at the time of the failure, the original equipment manufacturer had already left. So they were left at their devices. They have done everything possible to understand that. And we really want to salute them. And they are part of the effort to recover, get it back, get the units up and running. We are getting other skills, of course, like I said, on the FGD. Very few people understand that. And that's why we are reaching out also to the OEMs to work with us to get that right.
Okay. There are serious ramifications, though, to what is happening at Kusile, and I don't have much time. So if I can just ask you to just briefly explain the concern around a report that has actually been released indicating that this circumvent that is most likely going to happen at Kusile has serious environmental impacts. And the report actually indicates, I don't know why I can't find it now, but the report actually indicates that it could possibly lead to hundreds, here it is, a plan to operate Kusile without the flue gas desulfurization could lead to hundreds of deaths, a study shows. There are obviously environmental impacts here. Are you aware of this, and what are you going to do to try and avoid this from happening?
Well, we did not deny that there are environmental impacts, and that's why it's an interim measure. I think that's important to underline, an interim measure. And also, as we implement that interim measure, we take every effort possible to ensure that we reduce the sulfur content. Remember that the only parameter that is going to be compromised is just the sulfur content. The particulates and other things, no, they still remain under control, because the flue gas by design is meant to reduce the sulfur content. And that's why we are giving an interim measure by the Department of Fishery, Environment and Forestry. And that's why we have to also, in addition to these interim measures, to say what are we going to do to reduce the sulfur content. So we have never been in denial. We have accepted this, and that's why we had to go through the stringent licensing to say that give us exemption for this period. We are making this intervention during the period of that dispensation, but we'll go back to the more enduring solution, restoring the chimney and the units to ensure that we are able to save lives going into the future.
Okay, Minister, I have two last questions. Very quickly, we are seeing what's happening with sabotage. We are seeing how executives are involved. Is anyone making your life difficult or your job difficult?
No. I suspect I know where you are getting to. No, we're working very well with my peers. I must be very honest. I mean, this is not to sugarcoat anything. We're working exceptionally well. I did say that I've been working with Minister Mantashe, Minister Godan. When we go to the plant visits, DPE is part of us. When I submit the reports to Cabinet, they engage them positively. No one is making my life difficult. No, that should not be the case. There's no excuse there. We are going to resolve the load shedding problem. Okay,
we trust you to do so, and you promised you would dance afterwards. An issue that's completely not off topic, but a hat you previously wore as the mayor of the city of Tshwane. Seeing what's happening now with the water crisis and the cholera outbreak, this has been an issue for decades, probably 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken. Watching this unfold, what do you have to say about this?
Well, when we were in office, we commissioned a 500 million rand plant, and that project was stopped. So all documents are there for everyone to see. But where we are is to support Mayor Brink, working together with Minister Mchunu, and I'm sure that they are bringing additional reinforcements to make sure that we resolve that problem in Hammanskraal. We are able to avert any further loss of life, and we give them a quality of water that everyone deserves. So we will lend our effort to the extent that there are issues in relation to the supply of reliable quality electricity. We'll work with them. Of course, we're also working with the many water boards and municipalities to ensure that we don't compromise the delivery of water and the performance of the wastewater treatment plants and the water treatment work. So we'll work with them as part of these interventions.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Minister. We do appreciate it. Sorry I made you choke on your water. Thank you very much. That was Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa speaking to us about all things energy related. Stay tuned. I'll be back at the top of the hour with your headlines.